I get it standing in front of the music store aisle or scrolling through endless listings online. You're wondering if you're about to waste hard-earned cash on a sax that will sit untouched in a case. You've probably tried a beginner model, maybe even a cheap student sax, and you're feeling that gap between, I can play a simple melody, and I want the instrument to keep up when the music gets serious. That hesitation is real, and the last thing you need is another piece of gear that feels like a step backward. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Yamaha YAS 480 lands right in that sweet spot where a serious hobbyist or a college-age player starts looking for an instrument that can handle gig-level demands without the price tag of a professional model. It's marketed as an intermediate alto sax, and that label isn't just a marketing fluff. It tells you who the instrument is trying to serve. If you're the kind of player who has outgrown a student sax, who can read music, who is comfortable with basic articulation and dynamics, and who wants an instrument that will actually respond when you push the envelope, this is the sax that should be on your radar. Who should buy it? Think of the band student who's landing a lead role in a school jazz combo, the community college music major who needs a reliable instrument for rehearsals and occasional gigs, and the adult learner who's finally committing to regular practice after years of playing on a borrowed instrument. Those players typically need a sax that offers a richer tone palette, better intonation, and a neck that won't slip under the pressure of faster passages. The YAS 480 62-style neck with a professional-grade receiver hits those notes. It's the same neck design you see on many of Yamaha's higher-end models, but paired with an intermediate-level keywork that feels smoother than a student sax, yet isn't as finicky as a full-blown pro. On the flip side, if you're a total beginner just starting to learn the basics of embouchure, you might be better off with a more forgiving student sax that has a slightly softer resistance. Likewise, professional saxophonists who demand the absolute finest hand-engraved bell and a custom-cut bore for their own tonal preferences will probably find the YAS 480 a step below what they need. In short, it's not the instrument for someone who wants a buy-once, play-forever professional setup, nor is it the cheapest entry-level option for someone who only plans to dabble a few times a month. Now, let's talk about the practical strengths that actually matter once you get it out of the case. First, the gold lacquer finish isn't just about looks, although it does turn heads on stage. The lacquer adds a thin protective layer that helps the body resist minor dings and scratches from the inevitable bumps in gig life. In my conversations with a few sax teachers, they mentioned that students who travel to regional competitions often complain about dented shells, and the lacquered finish on this Yamaha has held up better than many raw-finished models they've seen. The hand engraving on the bell is another detail that, while aesthetic, also serves a subtle acoustic purpose. The engraving slightly disrupts the surface, which can help break up standing waves inside the bell and produce a marginally smoother overtone series. In real-world use, that translates to a tone that feels less bright and more rounded when you play in the middle register, a sweet spot for most jazz and pop arrangements. I've heard students describe the sound as full without being overpowering, which is exactly the balance you want when you're playing alongside a piano or a rhythm section. One of the biggest day-to-day advantages of the YAS 480 is the neck's ergonomics. The 62-style neck is a bit longer than the ultra-short student neck, which gives you a little more room to adjust the mouthpiece angle for a better embouchure. That extra length also means the keywork sits a touch further from the thumb, reducing strain during long practice sessions. I asked a couple of gigging saxophonists about how the neck feels after a 3-hour set, and they both said they experienced less fatigue compared to the shorter student necks they'd been using. That said, there are a couple of trade-offs you should be aware of. The YAS 480 does not come with a deluxe gig bag. It ships with a standard Yamaha case that's solid but not as padded as some higher-priced hard cases. If you're constantly flying between venues, you might want to invest in a more protective case to avoid potential dents. Also, because the instrument is aimed at the intermediate market, the key mechanisms are tuned for a balance between ease of motion and durability, but they're not as buttery smooth as the silver-plated keys you'd find on a top-tier professional sax. In practice, that means you may need to spend a bit more time on routine maintenance, regular oiling of the pivot screws, and occasional key adjustment to keep everything responding as crisply as you'd like. Another point that sometimes catches buyers off